just a philosophical concept, but a living reality that could be experienced as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the landscape. Brahmana's words became more urgent. He who never desires for anything, he said, who despises nothing becomes eligible, even when dwelling in this world, for assimilation with Brahman. The seeker felt his heart expand as if it was being stretched to accommodate the vastness of the universe. In that moment, Brahmana's words became a mantra echoing through the chambers of the seeker's mind, abandoning all action. He repeated, good or bad, developed from qualities, and casting off both truth and falsehood, a creature becomes emancipated. The seeker felt a sense of liberation wash over him, as if the very chains that bound him to the world were being broken as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky. Brahmana's words came full circle. The eternal tree of Brahman, he said, which forms the support of all creatures, is
in a sacred grove surrounded by the whispers of ancient wisdom. A group of Brahmanas gathered to discuss the mysteries of the universe. Their conversation revolved around the concept of Brahman, the ultimate reality that underlies all existence. Some among them regarded Brahman as a majestic tree, its branches stretching towards the heavens and its roots deep within the earth. Others saw it as a vast forest teeming with life and full of hidden wonders. Few, however, believed Brahman to be unmanifest, beyond human comprehension, and yet paradoxically also transcendent and free from all suffering. They proposed that this unmanifest reality is the source of everything in existence, giving rise to and absorbing all phenomena back into itself. As they pondered these ideas, one among them posed a crucial question: what happens when an individual's life comes to an end? Does their soul remain tied to the cycle of birth and death, or can it transcend this mortal coil? A wise Brahmana stepped forward to address this query. He spoke of the importance of cultivating equanimity even in the face of death. If one could maintain a tranquil mind for just the briefest moment equivalent to the time taken by a single breath, they would be able to merge with their true self and attain immortality. This, he explained, was achieved through the practice of pranayama, a technique of controlling the life breaths that allowed the individual to restrain them at will. As the Brahmanas listened intently, the wise one continued to expound upon the nature of goodness, dharma. He described it as the quality that arises from the unmanifest and which makes an individual fit for immortality. Those who possess this quality are said to be conversant with goodness, and they extol its virtues, proclaiming that there is nothing higher than dharma. By inference, they concluded that Purusha, the Supreme Self, is dependent on goodness. The wise Brahmana then turned his attention to the relationship between Purusha and nature. Prakriti, some scholars, he noted, believed in their unity, but this was not universally accepted. Instead, it was widely acknowledged that there exists a distinction and association between these two fundamental aspects of existence, just as water droplets on a lotus leaf are separate from, yet connected to the leaf itself. So, too, do Purusha and nature coexist and interrelate. As the discussion drew to a close, the Brahmanas felt a sense of wonder and awe at the mysteries they had uncovered. They realized that their understanding was still incomplete, and so they posed further questions to the wise one, seeking clarification on these profound concepts. The grandsire Brahma, the ultimate source of all creation, smiled upon them, pleased with their curiosity and eagerness for knowledge.
in the sacred groves of ancient India. A gathering of revered rishis convened to ponder the mysteries of duty. As they sat in contemplative silence, their minds began to wander towards the complexities of life's purpose. Which among the duties is deemed most worthy of being performed? They asked one another. The air was filled with the whispers of diverse opinions, like leaves rustling in the wind. Some argued that duty remained even after the body had been destroyed, while others claimed it did not exist at all. A few were uncertain, their minds shrouded in doubt. Others posited that everything was fleeting and ephemeral. The rishis saw before them a tapestry of contradictions. Brahmanas with mad locks and deer skins mingled with those who had shaved crowns and wore no clothes. Some advocated for complete abstinence from bathing, while others believed in regular cleansing. The air was thick with the scent of uncertainty. As they deliberated, their thoughts turned to the nature of time and space. Were these fundamental aspects of existence or mere illusions? Some donned the robes of ascetics, renouncing worldly pleasures, while others reveled in the joys of life. A few extolled the virtues of action, while others sang the praises of perfect tranquility. In this sea of conflicting views, the rishis were lost and disoriented of foremost one of the deities. They pleaded, duty is thus confused and full of contradictions. We are deluded and unable to come to any conclusion. They yearned for guidance, a beacon to illuminate a path ahead. Thus, with humility and reverence, they addressed the illustrious creator of the worlds, Brahma, who possessed great intelligence and a righteous soul. Declare to us, they implored, what is good? What is the cause of the connection between the Kshatrajna and nature? The rishis' words hung in the air like a prayer, seeking the wisdom of the divine. Brahma listened attentively, his gaze piercing the veil of uncertainty, and then with a gentle smile he began to speak, imparting the secrets of life's mysteries to those who sought guidance. His words were like a river flowing through the desert, quenching the thirst of the seekers and illuminating the path ahead. In a tranquil setting, Brahma began to speak to the gathering of esteemed scholars. My dear sages, I shall reveal to you the profound wisdom imparted by a revered preceptor to his worthy disciple. Listen carefully, for it is essential to grasp this knowledge thoroughly. As he spoke, the air was filled with an air of anticipation. Brahma continued, the ancients have declared that abstention from harming any living being is the highest duty, free from anxiety and a sign of holiness. This understanding leads one to attain supreme happiness through pure knowledge. With each word, the listeners' eyes widened in awe, their minds absorbing the weight of Brahma's words. He continued, those who engage in destruction and harm those who are infidels in conduct shall suffer the consequences of their cupidity and delusion. Descending into the depths of hell, scholars exchanged glances, their faces reflecting a mix of understanding and trepidation. Brahma's next words further deepened their contemplation. Those men who end up with learning and wisdom perform acts with faith, free from expectations and possessing concentration of mind, are said to perceive clearly. As the sun began its descent, casting a warm glow over the gathering, Brahma revealed the intricate relationship between Purua, the subject, and Prakriti, nature. Purua is always the subject, he explained, while nature is the object. The wise have said that nature consists of pairs of opposites and qualities. The scholars listened intently as Brahma described Purua's essence, eternal, free from qualities, and unattached like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. He continued, this is the certain conclusion of the scriptures. Nature is the property of Purua. The relation between these two is like that existing between matter and its maker. As night began to fall, Brahma's words painted vivid images in the minds of his listeners. He spoke of the journey through life, likening it to a traveler on a road without provisions. The man of intelligence, he said, journeys on a car with swift steeds, while the ignorant wander aimlessly. Brahma's words wove a tapestry of understanding, illuminating the path to knowledge and devotion. He spoke of Prajna, the unmanifest Mahat, the great in egoism, explaining how these concepts unfolded into the world. The scholars listened with rapt attention as Brahma described the five great elements and their properties. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Brahma's final words left an indelible mark on the minds of his listeners. The objects of the five great elements. In the sacred tradition of ancient India, a revered Brahma shared profound wisdom with his pupils. Since the mind is the ruler of these five elements, he began in the matter of controlling and bringing them forth. The mind, therefore, is the soul of the elements. He explained that the understanding, or Kshatrajna, proclaims power and guides the senses like a skilled charioteer yokes his steeds. As he spoke, the Brahmana described the vast forest of Brahman, which begins with the unmanifest and ends with gross subjects. This boundless expanse includes mobile and immobile entities illuminated by the radiance of the sun and moon, adorned with planets and constellations, and embellished by diverse kinds of waters. It is the means of subsistence for all creatures and their ultimate goal. The Brahmana revealed that whatever exists in this world, whether gods, men, Gant, harvest, Isaac, Azazurus, or Rakshasas, has sprung from nature, not from actions or causes. The Brahmanas themselves are born here again and again, creating the universe. Through the power of their minds, they dissolve into the five great elements, Like billows in the Ocean, when their time comes, those who have achieved perfection capable of concentration through yoga can perceive the triple world by penance alone. Medicines, herbs, and all sciences are acquired through this means. Penance is irresistible, and those who perform it well can cleanse themselves of even the most grave sins. The Brahmana spoke of the great regions that can be attained through devotion to penance, the highest goal reserved for the pure in heart, the unmanifest accumulation of happiness, and the release from every sin. Such individuals become Krishna in perfection, knowing the Veda and understanding the eternal Brahmanas. He concluded his teaching. The preceptor said, I have now declared everything to you. For most of regenerate rishis, do you act in this way, forthwith you will then acquire success. The Popolo son of Kanta did indeed follow these principles and attained emancipation, attaining that seat where one has not to grieve. Years later, Arjuna asked Krishna, who was that Brahmana, O Krishna, and who the Popol Vasudeva replied, I am the preceptor, O mighty armed one, through my affection for thee, O Dhananjaya. I have related this mystery to thee. As the sun began to set on the horizon, Vasapayana's words echoed in the minds of those gathered around him. After this, he said, Krishna ordered Daruka, saying, Let my chariot be yoked with. In a short span of time, Daruka hastened back to his master and announced, It has been yoked. The son of Pandu, Arjuna then commanded his attendants, saying, Prepare yourselves and be ready. We shall repair today to the sea, named after the elephant. The troops, donning their finest attire, quickly assembled themselves and informed Pritha, son of immeasurable energy, saying, Everything is equipped. Then those two, viz. Krishna and Arjuna, ascended their chariot and proceeded on the journey, engaged in delightful conversationists. They rode. Vasudeva, seated on the chariot, turned to Dhananjaya and said, O chief of Bharata's race, O perpetrator of the Vrishna race, the king has obtained victory. Through thy grace all his foes have been slain, and he has recovered his kingdom without a thorn in it. Arjuna replied, O slayer of Madhu, through thee the Pandavas are endowed with a powerful protector, having obtained for our raft. We have crossed the Kuru Ocean, O thou that hast this universe for thy handiwork. Salutations to thee, O soul of the universe, O best of all beings in the universe. Krishna's words were like a gentle breeze on a summer day, soothing and calming. Arjuna continued, I know thee in that measure in which I am approved by thee, O slayer of Madhu. The soul of every creature is always born of the energy. Playful sport in the form of creation, preservation, and destruction is Thenius. They approached the city named after the elephant. Krishna turned to Arjuna and said, We shall soon see my maternal uncle of Janardana. Thou shalt also see the irresistible Valadeva and other chiefs of the Vrishna race. Their chariot drew near the palace of Dhritarashtra, which resembled the mansion of Sakra. Upon entering the palace, they saw King Dhritarashtra, Vidura of great intelligence, King Yudhishthira, and Mesna, and the two sons of Madrai by Pandu. They also saw Yuetsa seated before Dhritarashtra, and Gandhari of great wisdom, Pritha, and the beautiful Krishna, along with Saladra. Counting first Krishna and Arjuna, approached King Dhritarashtra, announcing their names and touching his feet. They also touched the feet of Gandhari, Pritha, Yudhishthira, and Bhima, embracing Vidura. They as the mighty Krishna of the Vrishni clan made his way to Dwaraka, he was met with a grand farewell by the princes of Bharata's race. Faudana, one of them, couldn't help but repeatedly embrace Krishna, his eyes fixed on him until they were out of sight. The son of Pritha, Yudhishthira, and Krishna shared a poignant moment, their gazes locked in a silent understanding as Krishna's chariots forward. The wind blew with great speed, clearing the path of sand grains, dust, and thorns. Vayu, the god of the winds, rained down pure and fragrant showers, accompanied by celestial flowers. As if celebrating the hero's departure, the mighty armed warrior rode on, his eyes fixed on the horizon as he journeyed through the desert. Krishna encountered a wise ascetic named Utinka, renowned for his immeasurable energy. Utinka was engaged in intense penance, and Krishna, with great respect, worshipped him as an equal. In return, the ascetic honored Krishna, who then asked about his welfare. Utinka's eyes sparkled with curiosity as he addressed Krishna, O Saran, have you succeeded in forging a lasting bond between the Kurus and the Pandavas? It behooves you to tell me everything. He pressed Krishna for details, seeking to understand the outcome of his endeavors. Thus the Kamal Kesava, after having united them in peace, will the 5 sons of Pandu and the children of Dhritarashtra Sport in the world and joy with thee. Krishna's expression turned somber as he recounted the tale of the Kauravas' downfall. I strove my best to bring about a good understanding between them, he said, but alas, they refused to listen when all their efforts were in vain. It was destined that they would meet with destruction. Krishna's words hung heavy in the air as Yudhika's eyes widened in shock and rage. Yudhika's voice trembled with indignation as he spoke. Since you, though able, did not rescue those foremost ones of Kuru's race who were your relatives and dear to you, I shall curse thee. You failed to compel them to forbear, O slayer of Madhu. The ascetic's words cut deep into Krishna's heart, but he remained calm, aware that Yudhika was driven by his righteous anger. Krishna implored Yudhika to listen to him, O son of Phrigu's race. I beg of you, accept my apologies. You are an ascetic, and after hearing my words, you may then utter your curse. Krishna knew that no man could vanquish him through mere ascetic merit. He appealed to Yudhika's compassion, aware that the ascetic had achieved a great measure. The sun was setting over the sacred land, casting a warm orange glow over the same. As Yudhika approached Vasudeva with reverence in his eyes, O Kesava, he said, his voice filled with devotion, I humbly request you to reveal to me the Advaitma, that faultless and eternal truth. Having heard your discourse, I shall ordain what is for your good or denounce a curse upon you. O Janardana. Vasudeva's gentle smile illuminated his face. As he began to speak, no regenerate one, he said that the three qualities of darkness and passion and goodness exist depending on me as their refuge. So also I am the source of all creation, for in me are all creatures, and in all creatures do I exist. His words were like a soothing balm to Yudhika's soul, filling him with wonder, and as Vasudeva continued to speak, his voice grew more vibrant, as if the very essence of existence was being revealed. I am the origin and destruction of all things, he declared. I am the creator of all existent objects and their destroyer, knowing no change myself. I am the destroyer of all those creatures that live in sinfulness. Yudhika's mind reeled as he tried to comprehend the vastness of Vasudeva's nature. Vasudeva's words painted a picture of a universe where all things were interconnected, where every action and thought had consequences in every yuga. He said, I have to repair the causeway of righteousness, entering into diverse kinds of wombs from desire of doing good to my creatures. Yudhika felt his heart swell with emotion as he listened to Vasudeva's tale of eternal love and compassion. As Vasudeva spoke of his various incarnations, Yudhika's mind was filled with wonder. When I live in the order of the deities, Vasudeva said, I then verily act in every respect as a deity. When I live in the order of the Gandharvas, I then, O son of Phrigu's race, act in every respect as a Gandharva. Yudhika felt as though he was witnessing the very fabric of reality being woven and unwoven by Vasudeva's divine hand. Vasudeva's words turned to the recent events that had shaken the land. I appealed to them, the Kauravas, most piteously, he said, his voice tinged with sorrow. But stupefied as they were and deprived of their senses, they refused to accept my words. I frightened them, filled with wrath, referring to some great fear as the consequence of their slighting my message. Yudhika felt a shiver run down his spine as he listened to Vasudeva's account of the Kauravas' downfall. Finally, in a distant land, the wise sage Yudhika wandered through the desert, his heart yearning for the divine presence of Janardana, the creator of the universe. With reverence in his voice, Yudhika implored Janardana to reveal himself in all his glory. The Holy One, pleased with Yudhika's devotion, granted his request and showed him the eternal Vaishnava form of Vishnu. Yudhika beheld the majestic form. He was filled with wonder and awe. He saw the universe unfold before him, with Janardana's mighty arms stretching across all space. The sage's heart swelled with joy and gratitude as he bowed to the divine being, acknowledging his own insignificance in comparison to the glory of Janardana. Moved by Yudhika's humility, Janardana offered him a boon, saying, ask for some gift. But Yudhika, overwhelmed by the experience, simply requested the privilege of beholding the divine form once more. Krishna, pleased with Yudhika's sincerity, revealed that he would grant his wish to have water wherever he desired it. However, as fate would have it, Yudhika soon found himself wandering through a scorching desert. Parched and thirsty, despite his longing for water, he thought of Janardana. But instead of quenching his thirst, he saw a strange sight: a hunter besmeared with dirt offering him water from his urinary organs. The sage was taken aback and refused the gift, even going so far as to censure Krishna's intentions. Krishna, aware of Utinka's confusion, appeared before him once more. He revealed that he had requested the god Indra to grant Utinka a drink in the form of nectar. But the god had declined, citing it was not proper for a mortal to become immortal. Instead, Janardana had devised a plan to have Vasava, disguised as a hunter, offer Utinka water from his own body. Utinka's shame and confusion gave way to understanding as Krishna explained that he had been testing his faith all along. Moved by compassion, Krishna promised to arrange for clouds to bring forth water whenever Utinka desired it, and the sage was filled with joy and gratitude once more. As the years passed, the legend of Utinka's encounter with Janardana spread far and wide, and people came to know the Utinka clouds that brought forth life-giving rain in times of drought. And though Utinka had faced many trials, he knew that his devotion to the divine being had been rewarded, and that their bond would endure forever. In the serene and sacred surroundings of his ashram, Janamjaya asked Vasampayana about the penances that had led the great sage Utinka to contemplate cursing the mighty. Vasampayana began to recount the tale of Utinka's devotion to his preceptor Gautama. Utinka was a shining example of self-discipline and dedication. He had spent years under the guidance of Gautama, abstaining from worshipping anyone else and solely focusing on serving his preceptor. The other disciples, including those who were younger than him, had been permitted to return home after completing their studies, but not Utinka. Gautama's affection for Utinka was so great that he couldn't bear the thought of parting with him. As time passed, decrepitude began to creep over Utinka, but he remained unaware of it. One day, while fetching fuel for his preceptor, Utinka grew weary under the weight of the load and threw it down on the ground. A silver-white lock of hair became entangled in the pile, and upon seeing this sign of old age, Utinka was overcome with grief. Gautama's daughter, a beautiful maiden with eyes like lotus petals and hips full of curves, approached Utinka to console him. She held his tears in her hands, but they burned her skin, and she was forced to let them fall to the earth. The earth itself couldn't contain those teardrops, so great was their weight. Gautama, upon seeing his beloved disciple's distress, asked Utinka why he was so afflicted. Utinka explained that he had devoted himself entirely to serving Gautama for 100 years, but despite his dedication, he had never been granted permission to leave the ashram. Many younger disciples had departed, equipped with knowledge and wisdom, while Utinka remained behind. Gautama's love and affection for Utinka were so great that he couldn't bear the thought of parting with him. He told Utinka that if he wished to leave, he should do so without delay, receiving his permission. But Utinka was hesitant, unsure of what to present as a final gift to his preceptor. Gautama's response was unexpected. He offered Utinka his own daughter in marriage, saying that she was the only one capable of waiting upon Utinka's great energy, and with those words Utinka was transformed back into a young man of 16 years, full of vigor and vitality. He accepted Gautama's offer and prepared to depart, but before leaving, Utinka sought permission from his preceptor's wife Ahalya, asking what he should present as a final gift. Ahalya's response was simple. She was already gratified by Utinka's devotion and asked him to bring the celestial earrings worn by Saudas's queen. Those earrings were said to be of great value and beauty. Utinka set off. In a land far away, where the sun dipped into the horizon at the 6th hour of the day, King Saudasa ruled with an iron fist. His lone bird was smeared with the blood of human beings, and his very presence inspired terror in every breast. He looked like a second Yama, the god of death, and his energy was unmatched. And day, as the king sat on his throne, he spotted Utinka, a wise and learned Brahmana, approaching him. The king's eyes lit up with excitement, thinking that this Brahmana had come to offer prayers or blessings. But Utinka's intentions were far from what the king expected. By good luck, O best of Brahmanas, the king said, thou hast come to me at the 6th hour of the day, when I am in search of food. The king's words dripped with sarcasm, but Utinka remained calm and composed. He explained that he had come on a mission for his preceptor, and as long as he was employed for someone else's sake, he should not be injured. The king laughed at Utinka's response, thinking it was a clever attempt to avoid the consequences of his actions. But Utinka stood firm, refusing to back down. He proposed a compact with the king. After completing his mission for his preceptor, he would return and place himself under the king's power once more. A king, intrigued by Utinka's words, asked him what object he sought for his preceptor. Utinka replied that it was the jeweled earrings worn by the queen herself. The king scoffed at the idea, saying that those earrings belonged to his wife and should be asked from her direct. Utinka stood firm, insisting that the king hand over the earrings as a gift. He assured the king that he would return them once he had completed his mission for his preceptor. The king, impressed by Utinka's conviction, decided to send him to ask the queen himself. The queen, Mahabharat, was informed of Utinka's request and agreed to give him the earrings on one condition. She needed a sign from her husband that he had given permission. Utinka returned to the king and asked for this sign. But Sadasa claimed that he couldn't see his wife at the moment. Utinka then went to find Mahabharat near a famous fountain and informed her of his mission. She agreed to give him the earrings, but only if he could assure her that he was telling the truth. Utinka promised to bring back proof from Sadasa himself, and Mahabharat handed over the precious earrings. As Utinka held the earrings in his hands, he learned about their extraordinary powers. They produced gold day and night, shone brightly under starlight, and protected their wearer from hunger, thirst, fear, poison, fire, and every kind of danger. In the kingdom of Sadasa, where the king was known for his benevolence towards his friends, Utinka sought an audience with him. The Brahman, whose intention was to obtain the sign from the king that would convince Mahabharat, the queen, of his true commission by the monarch. King Sadasa, aware of Utinka's presence, called upon him and spoke words that were full of sincerity and humility. He expressed his unbearable condition, stating that he had no refuge left. The king then requested Utinka to give away the jeweled earrings as a sign of their agreement. Thus the Brahmana departed from the palace with the queen's earrings in hand. Utinka returned to the king and asked for an explanation regarding the mysterious words spoken by Sadasa. The monarch revealed that his calamity was caused by a Brahmana, and he had lost hope in continuing to live or attaining happiness in the afterlife. He explained that it was impossible for a king hostile towards Brahmanas to survive in this world or achieve happiness in the next. Utinka, seeking wisdom from his friends, Sadasa asked if it was proper for him to return to the kingdom given the circumstances. The king advised Utinka not to come back, stating that by doing so he would meet with death. With a heavy heart, Utinka took leave of the monarch and set out towards Zahalia's present seas. He journeyed on. Utinka became afflicted by hunger and spotted a vilwa tree laden with ripe fruits. He climbed the tree to pluck some, but in doing so the knot that bound the earrings to his deerskin cloak came undone. The earrings fell to the ground, where they were seized by a snake. From the Airavas, race filled with wrath and anxiety, Utinka began to pierce the field where the snake had entered. For 35 days he continued this task, causing the earth goddess immense pain. Eventually Indra, armed with his thunderbolt, arrived on the scene. Assuming the guise of a Brahmana, afflicted by Utinka's sorrow, Indra attempted to dissuade Utinka from his mission, explaining that the regions of the Nagas were far away and unreachable. However, the determined Brahmana refused to give up, vowing to cast off his life breaths if he failed to recover the earrings. Moved by Utinka's determination, Indra united his walking staff with the force of thunder, causing the earth to open a path to the nether regions inhabited by the Nagas. As Utinka entered this realm, he beheld its grandeur. Walls made of pure gold, fine tanks of water, and rivers of crystal clear water. Upon seeing the gate that led to the region's heart, Utinka felt despair wash over him. Just then a majestic black steed with a white tail appeared before him. The steed. The sun was setting over the majestic city of Dwaravatai, casting a warm orange glow over its bustling streets. It was a time of celebration, for the festival of Revazeka had begun, and the city was alive with music. Lawyer and colored Janim Jaya, a king from a distant land, sat in awe as he listened to the tale of Krishna's journey as Vaisampayana spoke the sing. Unfolded before them, like a vibrant tapestry, Govinda, the mighty armed Lord Krishna, had granted a boon to Utinka, a young sage, and then set off towards Dwaraka with his trusted companion, Satyakai, by his side. Their chariot, drawn by powerful steeds, across the land, passing through forests, hills, and rivers, until they reached the delightful city of Dwaravashis. They arrived. The Revaseka hill shone like a beacon, its beauty illuminated by the light of countless lamps and jewels. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers and the sound of music as men and women sang and danced in joyous abandon. The flags waved gently in the breeze, their bells jingling out a lively rhythm that seemed to match the beating of one's heart. The hill itself was a marvel, adorned with golden poles, garlands of gold, and trees that seemed to stretch up to the heavens in the caves, and fountains' lamps shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the entire scene. Everywhere people were lawing, singing, and making merry, their voices rising like a chorus to touch the very heavens. Krishna, accompanied by Satyaki, made his way through the crowds, his eyes shining with delight as he took in the sights and sounds of the festival. His relatives, the heroes of Vrishni's race, came forward to greet him, their faces filled with joy and affection. Krishna honored them with a gracious smile, inquiring after their welfare and embracing them warmly. As the evening wore on, Krishna entered a beautiful mansion. Surrounded by his loved ones, Satyaki went to his own quarters, his heart still aglow with excitement from their journey. The mighty armed hero had finally returned home, his feats of bravery and difficulty told in whispers among the people. Now, as he sat with his family and friends around him, Krishna began to recount the tale of the great battle, answering the questions put to him by his father and mother. His words were like a river flowing smoothly, carrying them all along on a tide of wonder and awe. The chief incidents of the battle unfolded before them, a testament to the heroism and bravery of the Lord himself. As the night wore on, Krishna's story came to an end, but its impact would stay with them forever, for in that moment they had caught a glimpse of the divine, shining brightly like a star in the firmament of there. In the quiet of the evening, Vasudeva sat with his son Arjuna in a serene atmosphere. The old sage's eyes sparkled with curiosity as he turned to Arjuna, saying, "O thou of Vrishi's race, I have heard tales of the great battle that shook the very foundations of the earth. You mighty armed one were there, witnessing it all with your own eyes. Tell me, describe this battle in detail." Arjuna, his eyes gazing into the distance, began to narrate the story of the war between the Kurus and the Pandavas. It was a clash of titans, he said, with heroes from far and wide gathering on both sides. Bhishma, that great warrior, led the Kaurava forces with 11 divisions under his command, like Indra, leading the celestial hosts. As Arjuna spoke, his mother Subhadra listened intently, her expression a mix of sadness and awe. The battle raged for 10 days. Arjuna continued with both sides trading blows that shook the very earth. On the 5th day, Drona took command, leading 9 Achathanas into battle. His prowess unmatched, but he was eventually slain by Drishtadyumna, and Karna became the new leader of the Kauravas. Vasudeva's eyes widened as Arjuna recounted the tale of Karna's bravery and ultimate fall to Partha. Arjuna himself. After that, Arjuna said, the Kauravas lost all energy, their armies dwindling with each passing day. Yudhishthira, our king, led the remaining forces, fighting valiantly against Shaila's armies. The story unfolded. Vasudeva's face reflected a mix of emotions: sadness at the loss of so many heroes and awe at the bravery displayed by all. The battle raged on for 8 days more, Arjuna said, until finally Duryodhana was slain by Bhimasna in a fierce duel within the waters of the Dwaitana Lake. The tale came to an end. Vasudeva's eyes filled with tears. The Vrishas gathered around him were overcome with grief and sorrow at the memory of that dreadful battle. Many kings had fallen, ascending to heaven as their mortal lives came to a close. In this moment, the weight of war hung heavy in the air, and the silence that followed Vasudeva's words hung like a sigh on the wind. Even thus did that battle occur, he said, softly, his voice carrying the weight of memory and remembrance. The sun had set over the tranquil landscape, casting a warm orange glow over the assembly gathered around Vasudeva. The venerable sage had just finished recounting the tale of the great battle of the Bharatas to his son Krishna, but there was one crucial detail that remained unspoken: the fate of Abhimanyu, the brave and fearless warrior who was Krishna's nephew. Zaladra, Krishna's sister, seemed to sense her brother's reluctance to speak of Abhimanyu's doom as she approached him with a look of concern etched on her face. "Krishna, tell me what happened to my son," she implored. As soon as the words left her lips, he fell to the ground in a faint. Vasudeva, witnessing his daughter's distress, was overcome with grief himself. He too lost consciousness, overwhelmed by the weight of his sorrow. When he regained his composure, he turned to Krishna and asked, "Krishna, why did you not tell me about Abhimanyu's death? You are known for your truthfulness. Why did you keep this secret from me?" Krishna's expression was somber as he began to recount the events of the fateful day. He told Vasudeva how Abhimanyu had fought valiantly, slaying hundreds and thousands of warriors before being surrounded by Drona and Karna. It was only When he was confronted by the son of Dasesana, that Abhimanyu finally succumbed to his injuries. Vasudeva's grief knew no bounds as he listened to Krishna's words. He begged his brother to tell him more about Abhimanyu's final moments, wanting to know every detail, every word that had been spoken in those last few moments of life. Krishna assured Vasudeva that his son had died a hero's death. Surrounded by the chaos of battles, the news sank in Savadra. Still recovering from her faint, began the lament of Abhimanyu's passing. She wept uncontrollably, calling out for her son and demanding to know why he was not among them. Kunti, Vasudeva's wife and mother of the Pandavas, tried to comfort her, reminding Savadra that their son had died a noble death. Kunti's words were laced with wisdom as she spoke to Savadra about the inevitability of fate. She reminded her daughter-in-law that Abhimanyu was mortal and that his time on this earth had come to an end. Kunti urged Savadra not to grieve, assuring her that their son had attained a great destiny in the afterlife. With Kunti's guidance, the assembly began to make arrangements for Abhimanyu's funeral rites. The vrish-eyed dame with the consent of Yudhishthira and Bhima and the twins Nay. In the aftermath of Abhimanyu's death, Vasudeva, a descendant of Shura, was overcome with grief. However, he soon composed himself and began to perform the obsequial rites. For his nephew, he also fed 6 million Brahmanas, presenting them with gold cattle beds and clothes. The Brahmanas, grateful for Krishna's generosity, declared that they would prosper. Krishna, moved by Vasudeva's devotion, was present at the ceremony. He gratified the thirst for wealth of the Brahmanas, and the same was filled with the sound of their joyful chanting. Meanwhile, other members of the family, including Baladeva, Satyaki, and Satyaka, performed the obsequial rites. For Abhimanyu, the Pandavas, still reeling from their loss, were also overcome with grief. They failed to find peace despite their efforts to do so in Virata's city. His daughter, Uttara, was so consumed by her husband's death that she refused food. For many days her relatives feared that the embryo in her womb would be destroyed. It was then that Vesa, a wise and powerful sage, appeared on the scene. He used his spiritual vision to assess the situation and declared that a son would be born to Uttara. Through Vasudeva's power and his own word, the child would rule the earth. After the Pandavas had departed from it, Krishna himself visited Vesa and was pleased with the sage's words. He told Yudhishthira, the grandson will become a high-souled prince. He will righteously rule the whole earth to the verge of the sea. Krishna assured Yudhishthira that this would indeed happen. With his grief somewhat alleviated, Yudhishthira summoned his brothers and told them about Vesa's words. Bhima, ever the optimist, suggested that they worship Girasa Shiva and offer to worship to him in order to obtain the wealth buried by Marita. The Pandavas agreed and decided to set out on their journey. As they prepared to depart, many Brahmanas came to bless them. They were accompanied by Vesa, who urged them to perform a horse sacrifice. With the sage's permission, the Pandavas left for the place where the treasure was buried, determined to bring it back and fulfill their obligation to perform the sacrifice. A journey began with great fanfare as the citizens of Hastinapura came out to bid them farewell. Many Brahmanas accompanied them, chanting blessings and wishing them success on their quest. The Pandavas set off with cheerful hearts, their spirits lifted by Vesa's words and the promise of a brighter future. As they departed, Yudhishthira remembered the words of Krishna and Vesa, and he knew that their journey was not just about obtaining. As the sun rose over the vast expanse of the earth, King Yudhishthira, accompanied by his brothers and a multitude of men and animals, set out on their grand journey. Their hearts were filled with joy and anticipation, and the sound of wheels flattering against the ground echoed through the land. The king's entourage was like a celestial procession, with eulogists, sutas, maghas, and bards praising his virtues in sweet melodies. The army that followed him seemed to be an extension of the Adityas, themselves adorned with their own radiant energies. As they traveled, the kingdom of Hastinapura gave way to forests, pleasure gardens, and finally majestic mountains. The royal party crossed numerous lakes and rivers, their waters glistening in the sunlight like 1,000 diamonds scattered across the earth. When they reached the region where the treasure was said to be buried, King Yudhishthira decided to pitch camp with his brothers and troops. The king chose a spot that was perfectly leveled and auspicious, surrounded by mountains that stood sentinel around them. The royal sons of Pandu and their companions, including other kings and learned Brahmanas, set about creating an elaborate encampment. They laid out 6 roads and 9 divisions, with the king and his ministers placed at its center a separate area was designated for the fire's elephants. Their company, the foreseest the camp took shape King Yudhishthira, turned to the Brahmanas and asked them to proceed with their plans. "You wise men," he said, "let us do what needs to be done in this matter. Let us fix an auspicious day and constellation for our endeavors. We must not tarry here for too long waiting in suspense." The Brahmanas, filled with gladness at the king's words, replied that the current day was indeed auspicious, with a favorable constellation shining overhead. "We shall strive to accomplish these high rites," they said. "We shall fast today and live on water alone. Will you not also join us in this act of devotion?" The royal sons of Pandu accepted the Brahmanas' proposal and passed the night fasting from all food and lying on beds of kusa, grass like blazing fires in the sacrifice. As the cloudless morning dawned, the learned Brahmanas addressed King Yudhishthira. Once more their words hung in the air, like a promise of what was to come. The king's eyes shone with anticipation as he listened to their discourse on various subjects. In this moment, surrounded by his brothers and the wise men who guided him, King Yudhishthira felt the sense of unity and purpose that would carry them through the trials ahead. In the midst of a grand ritual, the Brahmanas approached King Yudhishthira with a proposal. "Let us make offerings to the mighty Mahadeva, the three-eyed god." They said, "With his blessings we shall achieve our goal." The king, eager to please the Brahmanas and appease the deity, instructed them to prepare the necessary rituals. As the sun rose over the mountains, the priest Dhamya began the sacred rites. He chanted mantras, offerings sanctified, uttered to the fire, which crackled and spat as it consumed the libations. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers carefully selected by Dhamya and consecrated with his prayers. Modakas, fermenty, and meat were placed on the altar, a feast fit for the gods. Next, the priest turned his attention to the ghostly beings who accompanied Mahadeva in his celestial journey with offerings of diverse flowers, fry, paddy, and chrysalis, sweetmeats made from sesame seeds and milk. Dhamya performed the necessary rites to appease these otherworldly companions. The king, eager to honor the gods, gave away thousands of kine to the Brahmanas, who accepted them with gratitude. As the ritual progressed, the region became a veritable paradise, filled with the fragrance of dukas and the sweet scent of flowers. The king, accompanied by Vesa, the revered sage, proceeded towards the treasure buried beneath the earth with reverence and salutations. They paid homage to the Lord of Treasures, Siva, and his loyal companions, the Yachesis. They approached the site where the treasure lay hidden. The king caused it to be excavated, and what a wondrous sight met their eyes! Vessels of diverse forms, fringaris, cadus, calices, bardamanakes, and countless vaginas, vessels of beautiful craftsmanship, were in the wealth was placed in large caraputas for protection, while the king's men loaded camels, horses, elephants, cars, carts, mules, and men with precious goods. 16,000 coins were placed on each camel, 8,000 on each car, and 24,000 on each elephant. Proportionate loads were placed on horses, mules, and men, who bore the weight of their burden with difficulty as they set out for the city called after the elephant. The king's procession gladdened the hearts of all those perpetrators of the Kuru race, with Dhamya leading the way. The mighty host made short marches each day, measured by Goyuta 4 miles. The weight of their burden was crushing, but they pressed on, bearing the wealth towards the capital, leaving behind a trail of wonder and awe in their wake. In the city of Hastinapur, a bustling metropolis filled with the sounds of royal grandeur, Vasudeva, the illustrious prince of Dwaraka, arrived with his entourage, accompanied by his loyal companions, including Yudhana, Sharuvishna, Samgada, Kritavarman, Sarana, Nizatha, and Anmukha. He made his way to the palace of King Dhritarashtra. They entered the city. Vasudeva was greeted with great honor by the king and Vidur, a wise and noble advisor. The Vrishna prince's presence was met with joy and reverence, for it was said that he had come to comfort the ladies of distinction who had lost many of their protectors in battling among those waiting anxiously for Vasudeva's arrival were Draupadi, Uttara, and Savadra, all of whom had been deeply affected by the loss of their loved ones. They were joined by Kunti, the maternal aunt of Vasudeva, who was overcome with grief at the thought of her nephew's death as the Vrishni prince entered the palace. He was met with a scene of great distress. Kunti, Draupadi, Savadra, and the other ladies were weeping piteously, their eyes red from tears. It was then that Vasudeva beheld his own paternal aunt, her voice choked with emotion as she implored him to revive the child of his sister. Son of Vasudeva, Kunti cried out, you are our refuge and glory. This child depends on you for its protection, O Yideva Heru. Do you remember your vow? You said that if the child came out dead, you would revive it. Kunti held up the stillborn child, her eyes filled with tears. As she begged Vasudeva to keep his promise of Rishi, Prince's heart was moved by Kunti's words, and he took hold of her gently. Raising her from the ground, he comforted her with soothing words, assuring her that he would do everything in his power to revive the child and fulfill his vow. As Vasudeva spoke, the other ladies present began to wail, their voices echoing through the palace, as they exclaimed, alas, the son of Vasudeva's nephew has been born dead. But the prince's words brought a glimmer of hope, and Kunti, Draupadi, and Savedra all fell to their knees, praying that Vasudeva would keep his promise and revive the child. As the sun rose over the tranquil landscape, Savedra's eyes welled up with tears as she beheld her brother Kunti slowly sitting up. Her grief was palpable, and she wept aloud, overcome by the weight of her emotions. With eyes like lotus petals, she cried, look upon the grandson of Arjuna, wise and intelligent. Alas, the Kuru dynasty has been vanquished, and a child has been born, feeble and lifeless. The blade of grass inspired by Drana's son to destroy Vimesna fell upon Uttara. Vijaya and me, Savedra, poured out her heart. She gazed at Krishna, the irresistible hero, with pleading eyes. That blade still pierces my heart, O Kesava, she implored, for I do not see this child born of my son's seed alive. And well, what will the righteous-souled king Yudhishthira say? How will Vimesna, Arjuna, and the sons of Madravati reach when they hear that Abhimanyu's son has been born? And Dai Krishna listened attentively to Savedra's words, his expression a mask of compassion. He knew well the depth of her sorrow, for she had lost her own child in the war. As she spoke, he gazed upon the two standing beside Kunti, Pritha, and Draupadi. Their faces, etched with concern, Savedra continued to beseech Krishna, recounting the words he had spoken. When Drala's son sought to destroy the embryos of the Pandava ladies, you said, O grinder of foes, I shall disappoint your wish. I shall revive the son of Kiratin's son. Remember those words, O Krishna, she implored. If you do not revive Abhimanyu's child, what use will you be to me? If this child does not live, of what avail is your presence? See, Savedra's words reached a crescendo. Her voice cracked with emotion. She fell at Krishna's feet, her head bowed in supplication. O mighty armed one, she begged, show compassion to Uttara, or to me, thinking that I am the sister, or even a mother who has lost her son and cast herself upon your protection. Her words hung in the air, a poignant plea to the god Krishna, who stood before her, his eyes filled with understanding. Krishna's expression remained serene, yet his heart was moved by Savedra's words. He knew that he had the power to revive the child, and perhaps through this act bring solace to the grieving mother. His silence spoke volumes, a promise of hope in a moment of despair. As the sun continued its ascent, Savedra, as the news of Abhimanyu's death spread throughout the palace, Vaisampayana watched with a heavy heart as the king's sister and others tried to comfort their grief-stricken brother. But it was not until Krishna, the slayer of Kazin, arrived on the scene that the atmosphere in the palace began to change. Krishna, known for his compassion and kindness, entered the inner apartments of the palace with a calm and composed demeanor. His presence seemed to soothe the troubled minds of those around him, like a cool breeze on a sweltering summer day. As he walked through the palace, he was met with the sound of wailing women and the whispers of anxious courtiers. Krishna's eyes scanned the area until they landed on the lying-in room where his own father had been born. The room was filled with an array of offerings to ward off evil spirits, including garlands of white flowers, water pots, and mustard seeds. Krishna's gaze swept across the room, taking in every detail. Before he let out a deep breath and smiled. Excellent, excellent, he exclaimed, his eyes shining with approval. His words were like a balm to the souls of those around him, and they too began to feel a sense of hope and renewal as Krishna's countenance brightened. Draupadi, who had been waiting anxiously for his arrival, rushed into the room with tears streaming down her face. O blessed lady, she said to Virata's daughter, here comes your father-in-law, the slayer of Madhu, that ancient Rishi of inconceivable soul. Virata's daughter, still struggling to contain her grief, looked up at Krishna with a mixture of sadness and hope in her eyes. She covered herself properly and waited for him to arrive, just as the gods themselves would wait reverently for his presence when Krishna finally entered the room, Virata's daughter was overcome with emotion. "O Janardana," she said, her voice trembling with sorrow, "behold us too deprived of our child, O slayer of mad. Both Abhimanyu and myself have been equally slain. Krishna listened attentively as Virata's daughter poured out her heart to him, lamenting the loss of their child and the cruel fate that had befallen them. She implored Krishna to revive their child, who had been consumed by Drana's son Aswathaman's Brahma weapon. Krishna listened with a sympathetic ear, his expression filled with compassion and understanding. He knew the depth of Virata's daughter's sorrow and the weight of her grief. "If I repair to him now," she said, "what indeed will Falguna's son say?" In the midst of sorrow, Uttara lay on the ground, her body exposed as she mourned the loss of her son. Her cries echoed through the palace of the Pandavas, now transformed into a mansion of grief, where no one could remain without shedding tears. Kunti and the other Bharata ladies wept aloud at the sight of their beloved princess in such distresses. They beheld Uttara's pitiful state, her child stillborn. They were overcome with anguish. Virata's daughter seemed to have lost all sense of purpose, as if struck down by sorrow and despair. But then, regaining consciousness, she cradled her son in her arms and spoke words that pierced the hearts of those around her. "My child," she said, "you are the offspring of one who knew every duty. Should you not be aware of the sin you commit by not acknowledging this great soul from the Vaishnava clan?" Her voice trembled as she continued, "Even without my husband, and now without you, I remain alive, unendowed with auspicious qualities or valuable possessions. But if I were to die, it would be a premature death." Indeed, as she spoke, her words took on a sense of determination. She vowed that she would either swallow the virulent poison or cast herself into the blazing fire, just as King Yukeshvara had permitted. Her heart, though broken, refused to shatter into 1,000 pieces. Even in the face of such overwhelming loss, her son Abhimanyu's child lay still on her lap. But Uttara urged him to rise, and behold his great-grandmother Kunti, who was bathed in tears, cheerless, and plunged into a scene of sorrow. She pointed out the revered princess of Panchala, the helpless princess of the Satvata clan, and herself, all suffering together. The ladies around her raised Uttara from the ground, and as she sat up, they summoned their patients to join hands in reverence and touched the earth with their heads for saluting Kesava, whose eyes shone like lotus petals. The sound of their lamentations was heart-rending, but it seemed to awaken something within Vasudeva, the great being from the Dasaras clan. He touched water and withdrew the Brahmo upon a gesture that spoke of his commitment to righteousness, with a promise to give her child's life back. He declared that his words would prove true. He invoked the merit of his acts, the love for Brahmanas, and the truth he had always upheld, even in battle. As he spoke these words, the universe seemed to bear witness to their sincerity, and then, like a miracle, Abhimanyu's child began to stir gradually, moving as if revived by Vasudeva's promise. The room was filled with wonder, and the sorrow that had gripped everyone slowly gave way to. In the aftermath of the great battle, when Krishna's Brahma weapon had been withdrawn, the atmosphere in the palace was one of jubilation. The room where Abhimanyu lay still was suddenly illuminated by his father Arjuna's energy, and the dark forces that had gathered there were forced to flee. Many of them met their demise as they retreated. As the light from Arjuna's energy filled the room, a voice echoed through the heavens proclaiming Krishna's excellence. The Brahma weapon, which had been unleashed with such devastating power, now returned to its creator, and Arjuna began to breathe once more. His son Abhimanyu stirred within his mother's womb, responding to his father's renewed vitality. The women of the Pandavas' household were overjoyed at this turn of events. Kunti, Subhadra, Drupada's daughter, and Uttara, all the wives of those brave Bharata warriors, rejoiced as if they had finally reached shore after a long and perilous journey. They praised Janardana, their beloved Krishna, for his role in bringing about this miraculous news of Abhimanyu's birth spread. The city came alive with celebration. Bards and eulogists, accompanied by beautiful women, adorned the streets with their songs and stories. The pennons and standards that flew above the city seemed to dance in the wind, as if rejoicing along with the people. Even the officers of the government joined in proclaiming that this day was one for rejoicing throughout the kingdom. In the midst of all this joy, Uttara rose from her bed, cradling her newborn child in her arms, and reverently saluted Krishna, the divine warrior. Pleased by their devotion, bestowed many precious gifts upon Abhimanyu. The other chiefs of the Vaishnava clan followed suit, showering the infant with gems and treasures. Finally, it was time for Krishna to bestow a name upon his grandson with great solemnity. He declared that the child would be known as Parikshit, a fitting name for one born at a time when their family's fortunes seemed at their lowest ebb, and so at the menu now named Parikshit began his life amidst the celebrations of the Siddhis. The month past Arjuna continued to grow stronger, bringing joy to all who saw him. The people of the kingdom rejoiced at the prospect of their leader's recovery, and preparations were made for the return of the Pandavas from their long and arduous journey. When they finally arrived bearing with them a profusion of wealth, the city erupted in even greater celebration. The streets were adorned with flowers and pennons, and the people sang and danced through the night. The air was filled with music and laughter, as if the very gods themselves had descended upon the city to join in. The sun was setting over the city of Hastinapura, casting a warm orange glow over its bustling streets. The air was alive with the hum of voices and the clatter of chariots. As the mighty host of the Pandavas arrived in town, at their head rode Vasudeva, the crusher of foes. Accompanied by his trusted ministers, the Pandavas made their way through the city. They were greeted by the people of Hastinapura with great fanfare. The earth and the sky seemed to reverberate with the sound of drums and conch shells. As the heroes entered the capital, their treasure and tell with rejoicing hearts, they paid their respects to King Dhritarashtra, worshipping his feet and announcing their news. The king's court was filled with the fragrance of incense, as the Pandavas bowed down to Gandhari, the daughter of Suvala, and Kunti, their mother. They then worshipped Vidur, their uncle, and Metyuyutsu, the son of Dhritarashtra, by his Vaisya wife. The heroes blazed forth in beauty, their splendor illuminating the darkening city. As they made their way through the palace, the Pandavas heard the tale of their father's great feat. They learned of Vasudeva's bravery and cunning, how he had rescued them from the clutches of their enemies and brought them safely to Hastinapura. Moved by his heroism, they worshipped Krishna, the delighter of Devaki, who was every way worthy of worship. Days passed, and the city was filled with the presence of Vesa. The great Rishi, son of Satyavati. The Kuru princes paid their respects to him according to tradition, and after a brief conversation, Yudhishthira approached him with a proposal. Holy One, he said, I wish to devote this treasure to the great horse sacrifice known as the Rajasuya. I seek your permission, O best of ascetics. Vesa smiled, his eyes twinkling with approval. I give you my blessing, O king. He said, perform the sacrifice with profuse gifts and worship the deities. The horse sacrifice is a cleanser of all sins. It will purify your heart and soul. Thus addressed Yudhishthira, set his mind on preparing for the great sacrifice. He consulted Krishna, the island-born warrior who had brought them to this moment of triumph. O Vasudeva, he said, the goddess Devaki has been blessed by you. Now I ask that you perform the rites of initiation and lead us in the sacrifice. You are our highest preceptor and master. If you perform the sacrifice, I shall be cleansed from every sin. Vasudeva's face shone with a warm smile as he replied, Oh, in the midst of a bustling kingdom, a grand plan was unfolding. Vaisampayan, a wise and venerable sage, stood before Yudhishthira, the son of Dharma, and shared the words of Krishna. The great king listened intently as Vesa's message was conveyed. It was time for his sacred initiation, a rite that would mark him as a true leader and bring prosperity to his people. Yudhishthira, with his heart filled with devotion, saluted Vesa and requested his guidance. He promised to follow the sage's instructions, entrusting himself to the wise one's care. Vesa, with his deep understanding of the cosmic orders, smiled knowingly and began to outline the details of the initiation. The day of full moon in Chaitra will be the auspicious moment, he declared. Prepare all the necessary items for the sacrifice, including a worthy horse chosen by experts, well versed in the science of horses. He instructed Yudhishthira's attendants to select a magnificent steed, one that would embody the king's glory and bring him closer to his divine essence. As the preparations unfolded, Krishna, the wise and powerful prince, was summoned. Vesa entrusted him with the responsibility of protecting the sacred horse as it roamed freely across the land, guided by the scriptures. Krishna nodded solemnly, accepting the challenge, and assured Yudhishthira that he would be accompanied by his brothers Arjuna, Dhamma, and Nakula. Mighty warrior Arjuna was tasked with safeguarding the horse as it wandered over the earth, spreading its majesty far and wide. Krishna entrusted him with a vital message to establish friendly relations with any kings who might encounter them on their journey, inviting them to join in the sacred rite of initiation with a plan set in motion. Yudhishthira turned to his trusted attendants, Bhima and Nakula, and instructed them to secure the city, readying it for the arrival of honored guests. Sahadeva, the wise and brave warrior, was dispatched to welcome all who had been invited to join in the celebrations. The preparations neared completion. Yudhishthira's heart swelled with gratitude towards his wise guides, Vesa and Krishna. He knew that their guidance would bring him closer to his divine essence and ensure the prosperity of his people for generations to come. The stage was set for a grand ceremony, one that would be etched in the annals of his story as a testament to the power of devotion and wisdom. As the sun rose over Hastinapura, the city was filled with excitement and anticipation. The ritual of initiation for King Yudhishthira's horse sacrifice had finally arrived, and the entire kingdom was abuzz with activity. Vesapayana, a wise sage, stood at the forefront, guiding the proceedings with great pomp and circumstance. The Ritwajas, revered priests, well versed in the ancient traditions, initiated the king into the sacred ritual. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the sound of chanting filled the air as they performed the intricate rites. King Yudhishthira, resplendent in his golden garland and adorned with a red silk cloth, shone like a blazing fire, his presence radiating an air of splendor. As the Ritwajas completed their duties,